You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Echo's there on the backhand, scoring the save, rebound in the crease, they score!
Hosted by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney. And this episode number 18 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in Tower Square in downtown Springfield, their new location in Amherst, your go-to pregame spot for T-Birds games, by our friends at Brewcade on Walnut Street in Agawam, and by our friends at Landscaping That Fits, 413-847-0338, alongside Matt Baker. I am Steve Forney. What's up, Matt? How are you, my friend?
Doing well. We're recording a little bit later than we normally do. We wanted to kind of let the dust settle from All-Star break, and I'm looking forward to a snow day tomorrow. So yeah, I hope you are too. This episode probably will be up by midday Thursday.
Yeah, we can get it up tomorrow for sure.
So some great snow day viewing for you folks.
Absolutely. And and today's my daughter's birthday. That's the other reason we're recording late, is because we're just busy, man. We're busy. So
yeah. Happy birthday to Ellie, by the way. That is awesome.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
She'll be up on the Jumbotron on Saturday. Looking forward to that. She'll lose her mind. So we have the Iowa trip to recap. We have a little bit of All-Star game to delve into. We have some player movement up and down, but through St. Louis. So we're going to touch on that and see how that's going to affect us. So, and we didn't do a fan rant this week. Sorry, guys. Again, we're just busy and tired and getting old. I think maybe a part of it too. So that's on us, but that's okay. We're still going to put together some entertaining stuff for you, Matt. In regards to the Iowa trip, I just don't know if you have any sort of general takeaways from those two games out there in Iowa.
I thought it was a great performance. I was a bit worried. One of the things we talk about a lot is sometimes this team seems to play to where their competition is, and not knowing much about Iowa. I'm just looking at their record. I'm looking at box scores as we're prepping for the weekend, and I'm like, oh, this team's not that good. I hope we don't show up and expect have a Bridgeport type showing. And we didn't have that. We dominated both games, which is I think a bit uncommon in the AHL, to have sort of control a victory on the road Saturday night or Friday night, and then come back Saturday and do the same thing all over again. I thought we had two fantastic performances by both goaltenders, Colton Ellis and Vadim Zarenko. Vadim setting I believe it was a team record, 48 saves. I mean, just phenomenal. So there aren't really, it was also one of the reasons why I didn't put a fan rant up, was it's like, it's all good. It's all gravy. It's not much to really rant about. And I know, look, we all like to rant our positive opinions as well, but it just was it was a good weekend, great weekend of hockey. I think you had, and I'm pretty sure I'm not mistaken, I looked this up, all forward lines and D pairings had at least a point over the weekend. So when you just talk about a team right now, or a team last week, that is balanced from line 1 to line 4, we talked about this as from a goaltending standpoint. If you look at both of our goalies, our goalie number 2, in air quotes, for those who are listening on the podcast, our number 2 goalie is some team's number 1, and they would be happy with a Vadim Zarenko as a number 1. You look at our lines that we put, that Konowalchuk put together in Iowa, where your fourth line is McGing, Stenberg, and
Dean.
You know, I think Dean, Peterson, and Bitton were the third line, but you had Robertson, Stenberg, McGing in your fourth line. Again, that was our second line a few weeks ago.
Right.
And you're not really complaining about that as your second line. So from top to bottom, you just had a team clicking. You had a team that was just clearly better, and they performed better. So it was good to see that. It was a breath of fresh air. It was, all right, you know, it was a great weekend as far as just from a fan perspective.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the goalies. I think that was kind of the story of the weekend. The big thing for me was special teams. They went 2 for 4 in the 2 games. You know, Dylan Peterson, you know, runs over the goalie. I thought the penalty was warranted. Let's just put it that way. And what happens? They score a shorty.
Yeah.
Just a backbreaker, right? And I'm glad you mentioned Providence too, because I wrote in my notes, the Iowa team feels very Bridgeport-y. And if they played that way against Bridgeport would lay down and they would beat them every game.
Yeah.
So how come we can do it against Iowa and not Bridgeport? And again, it's familiarity, right? Stuff like that. Like Bridgeport knows how to play us and what they're in for. But when you get a Bridgeport-y team that you don't see every other weekend, you're able to really exploit their weaknesses and take advantage of them. And so, you know, like I said, 2 for 4 on the power play, plus a shorty and an empty netter. Like that just shows to me that they're really clicking, really on all cylinders. And again, timely power play goals. The big one to open up the scoring the second night, or is it the first night? The first night, and then you get another one in the second to go up 3-0. And again, boom, power play goal to go up 3-0 against a team you're better than. That makes a team like Bridgeport lay down.
Yeah.
So you did it against Iowa. Great. Can you do it against Bridgeport? And the difference, you know, I say that I don't think Iowa laid down. I thought that Iowa raised their intensity in the third periods in both games. And I saw more fight from Iowa against them than I would imagine you would get from a Bridgeport on a random Saturday in February. You know what I'm saying? So
I do. Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
And let me use that to bring me to my next point, and as sort of maybe a little bit of a negative of, or something, an observation that I actually noticed. So to your point, I felt in game 1 in Iowa was still close, 3-1, I believe at that for most of the third period. And you saw an Iowa team, to your point, not lay down, bring the energy, bring the physicality, and really dominated. I don't know if that's the right word to use, because it didn't feel as though they were actually dominating play.
They outshot Springfield 13-2 in the third. I mean, that's pretty good.
It was. But I still, watching it, I didn't really feel like, and maybe it's because we're not used to this team. You know, if it was a Bridgeport team, I'm like, oh, here we go again, maybe. So that's fair. But what I was missing was, where's that crank from Springfield? Where's that next level? And it got me thinking about this team, and maybe this is a Matthew Pekka. This is who Matthew Pekka is. He's even keel. It doesn't matter if you're down 2-0 to Hershey with 12 seconds left. It doesn't matter if you're up against Iowa 3-1 with the whole third period to play. You're going to get an even keel Springfield. That can be good. That is good. But could it be, when you're now in the playoffs and you're facing the Penguins and you're up 3-1 and you outplayed them for 2 periods, you don't just want to sit back. And that's what I feel like that's what they were doing, was just, we've already won, let's not do anything to lose it. And they let Iowa dictate it. I worry if you do that against the Penguins or a more skilled team in the playoffs, you have to match their energy. You have to match their level of intensity, of physicality, of hustle. So that was a bit of, again, concern, no, but an observation. Where can this team crank it to the next level if they come out in the third period a little flat, or just maybe not at the same level as their opponent.
Maybe
I'm
there's just a
nitpicking here,
different
I think, but
maybe there's just a different approach to holding a lead. I mean, everybody kind of does it
and that
differently,
fair.
but I mean, they were in the 2 third periods combined, they were outshot 29-5.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty extreme. But, again, it goes back to the goalies. You had the goaltending, and maybe with that energy, I in one of my notes from those games, I mentioned real quickly, let me pull it up. Physicality was dangerous at points. Third period, night 2, Iowa seemed like they were trying to hurt people. Glad we're relatively unscathed. How do we, as a team that's not necessarily built on physicality, how does Springfield defend themselves against physical teams that are spending their third period in a blowout headhunting? Like, how do you how do you keep guys from getting seriously hurt? And I don't know the answer to that, but that is definitely a concern. And maybe a part of that is if you bring more energy and intensity, like you're talking about, that'll automatically help you dictate the play, whether it's physicality or they just run around and try to chase you all night and you're just skating in circles, wasting time and winning the game that way. But you're right. Maybe if they had a little more pep in their step, they're not putting themselves in situations to,
or even if it's just looked at in segments, like you get in a groove, and both of us have watched enough hockey. Neither one of us played at the AHL level or at any level.
Can't skate.
We've watched enough hockey, though, to know that momentum ebbs and flows and comes and goes. But in a game like that, do you need the first 8 minutes of a third period to say, we've got to come out like it's 0-0. We got to come out like we're down 3-1. And if they start hitting, we got to hit back. And we can't be worried about, and I get it. If you're a Dylan Peterson or a Sam Bitten or a Hunter Skinner and you're getting into a fight, well, I don't want to give them momentum. Well, maybe you just need to do that in that first 8 minutes to say, this isn't how it's going to go in the third period. And then maybe you have the opponents sort of, tuck their tail, so to speak, and kind of just say, all right, not our night. You need those first 5 to 8 minutes to sort of set that tone in that third period. And then you can sit back and relax the last 12 and you can get outshot 10-0 in the last 12. The damage has been done because you're right. Like that was just something that I noticed and lucky nobody did get hurt. But especially with a game the next day, I remember watching it saying, Springfield, where are you? What do you're just, you're not making any mistakes. So nothing was crucial. But again, we've seen what happens when a goaltender isn't hot. A goaltender isn't a bit of a rut. A goaltender does make 1 or 2 bad plays. That's all it is. Because I do wonder in that first game, had Ellis, and again, these are hypotheticals. This isn't, and I'm nitpicking here, but had Ellis led in 1 goal and now it's 3-2 with all momentum on Iowa, I would have liked to have seen them keep things at bay a little bit in that first game. Even though they got outshot in the third period, that one was already way out of hand, in my opinion, score-wise. So, I guess you kind of understand why, if you are Springfield, you're not looking to put more in and sort of embarrass a team after you've just dominated them 2 nights in a row. But, that's sort of my observations.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And I think there was a lot learned on that trip. I think they learned a lot about themselves. And I thought that they played stylistically, not that they changed anything. It just looked to me like they were feeling it a little bit with whatever they kind of had going on. And I think that clearly showed. But again, it did just feel sort of Bridgeporty to me.
They got their swag back for sure. I mean, I paid attention. There wasn't a big celebrations after a goal. It was expected. Like, and to me, that's almost, that's if you're the opposing team, that's telling to me. Like, these guys are expecting the score. They played with swag. Like they, aside from that third period in the first game, they were able to do what they want. And on both sides, offensively, defensively, in the neutral zone, special teams. I mean, it was dominating.
So, a couple of those kind of things talking about swag, they, so they get the power play goal from Dvorsky in the first game to go up 3-0. Again, I always kind of feel like that's a backbreaker when you get down 3-0.
Yep.
They have that sort of rocky third period. They come out less than 24 hours later, a minute 22 in, Hugh McGing scores, boom, you're up 1-0. So talk about backbreaking that, then you get a snipe from Sam Bitten 4 minutes later, which, by the way, was nasty. I think there was 4 or 5 goals that were right underneath the bar, right in the top shelf corner, just gorgeous goals. There's nothing you can do about it. And, in that one, you get up 2-0, you get up 2-1, 2.5 minutes into the second period, McGing again, 3-1. Iowa scores. They think that they're back in it. 20, not even, what was that, 17 seconds later, something like that. Nicky scores to make it 4-2. A minute later, literally a minute later, Bushinger scores to make it 5-2. Ball game.
Yeah.
So when we talk about swagger, we talk about confidence, we talk about knowing that you're better than your opponent. Iowa could have shaken off night one and said, that's all right, we'll get them tomorrow night. Tomorrow night rolls around and boom, right out the gate. Again, putting the foot down and not letting them up. And that's exactly what they did, which was awesome. And that was a lot from the power play. But as you mentioned, a lot of different goal scorers up and down the roster. To me, was super impressive. So yeah, I'm just looking through my notes here. Three tight top shelf goals night 2 early in that game. This is something that I don't know the answer to, another one of these, but I'm sort of fascinated by this. I wrote that the Swedes are amazing on defense. I think that the Swedes are playing phenomenal defense, all of them. Stenberg back checks, plays a 200-foot game, has no problem going back into his own zone and playing defense and covering guys. Johannesson always in the right spot. I just feel like this guy is always in the right spot. And Robertson is blocking shots like a madman. He'll get in front of anything, and some of them look like they hurt. By the way, happy birthday, Simon Robertson. Is it a benefit for these guys? And sort of the more I think about it, is it a benefit for them to play against grown men and former AHLers, former NHLers in some case, in the Swedish league, in the SHL, rather than NCAA, Canadian juniors, where it's 18-year-olds against 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds against 17-year-olds. I mean, you're 18 years old going up against the 35-year-old in the SHL. I got to imagine that you're more AHL, NHL ready coming out of something like that than you are coming out of Boston College.
Sure.
And there are the exceptions. Your Macklin Celebrinis and your Cale Makar, right? Like otherworldly planet players, right? Of course. Connor Bedard, obviously. McDavid, right? But like for the rest of them, I mean, how many of these guys have we seen, these prospects that are in the minors for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years? And you're like, all right, when is it going to happen? When are you making the jump? And in some cases it never does. And I'm just wondering if it's because you get used to playing that style against grown men over in Europe, as opposed to the, Moose Jaw, whatever they are, Ottawa 67s and the Regina Pats. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think either one of us actually have like raw data to back it up, but there could be something to that. And I think, I don't know if anyone can dispute the fact that playing up against 19-year-olds is different than playing up against 30-year-olds. There just is a difference. Speed, physicality, confidence level. So, that very well could be something to that. I think Leo Loof too also had a great weekend. I think I'm seeing him get more. He's still not shooting as much as I would like him to. And with still no goals in a year and a half in the AHL, like that makes sense. He doesn't shoot much, but he's engaging more offensively. I always think he's sound defensively. He's always where he needs to be. Rarely do I worry about him making a mistake defensively, but I'm seeing him more engaged in sort of some offensive sets and being more engaged in the rush, cycling the puck down below the crease line there. But yeah, there's not much you can say negative about how the Swedes are playing. They're definitely bringing a bit of an attitude, a bit of going back to that swag. And I think the coach, obviously with the playing time that these guys have earned, sees that. And again, going back to lines, I think we're going to talk a little bit about how the lines might look moving forward with some recent call-ups. I'm totally still comfortable and confident with line 1 down to line 4 because of that. Because on our line 4, we're going to have 200-foot players. We're going to play. You're going to have players that will back check, that will forecheck, that will hustle, that will engage offensively and defensively. So I think right now it's trending up. It's a good time to be a T-Bird fan and a Blues fan for that matter. I know I've had some recent Blues fans reach out to us on social media, and they're now listening to the show. It can be an exciting, maybe not for this year, and maybe not even for next year, but I think if you are a Blues fan, these prospects up till now are panning out to where I think they should be in their development. I don't, I know Blues fans would have liked to see Dvorsky up by now and playing. Yeah.
I don't know what he benefits from that.
And that's where I'm at. I don't know. Let him stay down here and continue to progress and be where he's supposed to be. Same thing with Stenberg and Robertson, all these guys, Buchinger. Let them stay here and continue to develop. I think they're on the verge of playing some really meaningful hockey down the stretch in a regular season and into the playoff. And I do believe something is to be said for just playing in those high pressure, win or go home type of moments. That's where you can scratch the surface of to see who is different, who is built for this, or who is, and no disrespect to anybody, but a fine line between an AHLer and an NHLer, and who's got that. I think in the playoffs, in these meaningful games down the stretch, you'll see who's meant to be an NHLer out of these prospects, and or who's just meant to be a really good AHL player. And again, no disrespect to anybody.
Right.
You're still better than 1% of all hockey players on this earth.
I am interested to kind of follow a guy like Matthew Patra, who again is in year 2. So he's one more year of experience ahead of Dvorsky. Granted, he was hurt a lot last season, but up and down between Boston and Providence. He finally had a long stint in Providence. Now he finally gets called up. I think he's got 7 points in 10 games, something like that. But the Bruins have also made it a focal point to have him on a power play unit. He's playing, if not second line, then third line minutes. He's killing penalties. He's on the ice. And what you don't want if Dvorsky goes up is him playing fourth line minutes, can't get into the power play because there's a log jam there. And you don't want him up playing 8 minutes a night or watching the game from the 9th floor. You want him playing big minutes, special teams. And that's where the development for me comes from. And you'd rather a guy dominate in the AHL than watch from the 9th floor at the NHL level. So, we are going to talk a little bit about.
Do you think?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, do you think is that part of some of the talk as even like an Oscar Sundqvist type of? Are they going to give him the same sort of treatment as who was the guy who just cleared waivers? But
Brandon Saad.
Saad, right? Like they're clearing room for the future. It's not going to help them now. It's not going to help them this season. But to your point, where there's that log jam, who are you taking off the power plays? Who are you taking off this? And you have an underperforming veteran, and you're just like, see you later, because next year these kids, we're going to give them a shot, and we're going to see what they can do.
Yeah, and I don't have any intel on it, but just looking at the usual progression of hockey, eventually as an NHL team, your fans get tired of you not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so the Blues here in a tough spot where I think the right thing for them to do would be to sell some of these expensive and older assets that they have at the trade deadline to either A, get younger, or B, make room for the younger crop of talent.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if you do that, you are folding the season. And when you're a GM, when you're a head coach, you're looking over your shoulder like, okay, how many seasons is this owners or team president's going to let me do this before I'm fired? Right. Yeah. So they have their own sort of rear end on the line. So you don't want to do that either. But how long are you going to hang on to some of these massive contracts? I mean, Nick Leddy finally came back. Krug's out for the year. I mean, that's like $9 million just in dead money. So like, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how that all plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if they did a little bit of trimming around the edges. You get rid of an Oscar Sundquist, like you mentioned, but in Brandon Saad. But what does that do for you, big picture? Like, I don't see. I mean, they're not expensive. I mean, you let Scott Perunovich go.
Yeah,
he's your cheapest defenseman. So like, you're not saving any money. You're like, I don't know. So the only other thing I added from the Iowa game was, and Ryan, please, Ryan, I don't mean this disrespectfully. I only get to watch the road games, obviously. I feel like if I watch the road broadcast, I'm getting more. I'm getting replays. I'm getting like Iowa just had like the one logo they would show up. It was like Iowa Wild presented by such and such. And it was up like every whistle. And then I would flip over to the Iowa feed, and now I'm getting replays. I'm getting all this other stuff. And by the way, and their broadcasters are, I checked their pulse. Are they awake?
a bit boring.
So with all due respect to Ryan, I find myself with the second game watching the Iowa broadcast just to hope I could see a replay for once.
Yeah.
Can I get a replay? So I'm curious to follow that and see if Flow Hockey actually is offering more to watching the home broadcast than the away broadcast.
Is that
annoying. I would turn it on and then mute it and then listen to Ryan on the radio would probably be the way that I would do it.
Is that a team by team thing? Like, do you know, or is that a Flow Hockey thing with cameras and how the feed works? How do replays work?
So my assumption is that Flow Hockey just picks up whatever's on the Jumbotron. Whatever you see on the Jumbotron is what you see on Flow Hockey. Unless you have a team like, I think it was Lehigh Valley, who has their own television broadcast.
That wasn't because it was NHL TV, you don't think?
I don't know. I mean,
that's the NHL TV game. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't imagine the NHL being like, hey, let's send a crew of 25 guys down to Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania for this game. You know what I mean? So,
Fair
and
point.
it looked professional. Like they had the thing like, on the Lehigh Valley Phantoms broadcast network. Like they had like their own like TV logo, whatever it was. Personally, I would be investing in something like that if I was any of these teams.
Yeah.
If I was Springfield, I don't know what Cozy TV is. I don't even know if I get Cozy TV, but what's the cost of putting together a production team to have every single game on Cozy TV that is, again, a professional looking broadcast? And if you want to charge from that, again, what's the stipulation of, I want to charge fans $50 for the season, $80 for the season, $100 for the season without making Flow Hockey mad? Do you know what I mean? Because well, right,
I do.
There's got to be some sort of legal,
yes.
Legal stipulations that allow.
Or does
I don't know.
Flow Hockey just get? I would imagine Flow Hockey gets the Lehigh Valley Phantom Network feed,
right?
So you would still, if you're Flow Hockey, still be getting the Springfield Thunderbird feed. Of course, we're all speaking
Cozy
hypothetically
TV.
but they're getting it from Cozy TV or whatever the Springfield Thunderbird media network is.
Yeah,
whatever that is. That's a good idea. Maybe
I'll ask around this weekend and see how that all works, because I honestly don't know.
Folks, listen. Maybe next year you'll see Steve Forney and Matt Baker leading the way here on Thunderbird Network.
You never know. We'll be at intermission breaking it down.
Yeah,
tossing it back to Ryan. It'd be awesome.
There you go. That would be fun.
All right, so real quick, we're going to talk about some all-star stuff, some roster movement. But I want to remind you, the SRG podcast proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing, their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street, and of course, right in downtown Springfield at Tower Square, 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Springfield Thunderbirds games, especially this weekend. There's a big snowstorm coming in Saturday, so you can park in Tower Square, which is covered, and then you can go down to Tower Square and save yourself, like, what is it, Matt? Like a half a block, 3/4 of a block, where you're walking.
It's the same
indoors,
distance.
But I mean, when you're in Tower Square, it's like a half a block inside, where you're not fighting the wind, you're not fighting the snow, you're not fighting the guys begging for change, right? So
and bad weather Saturday for the Isotopes.
Yeah,
game.
That's what I'm saying.
You know where I'll be parking.
Yeah, that's definitely the spot to park for sure. And then while you park there, go down to White Lion, have a beer, have some of the Seuss mac and cheese, maybe some Boomer nachos, and they will validate your parking for you, so you won't have to pay a dime. If you can't make it down there, that's okay. You can always check out White Lion Brewing in your local liquor store cooler. I saw them post today. They have specialty isotopes cans that they just released. So be sure to check those out. They support the Thunderbirds. They support us. We recommend you support them as well. White Lion Brewing, your go-to spot prior to Springfield Thunderbirds games. Make sure you tell them that the guys from the SRG podcast sent you. By our friends at Brewcade on Walnut Street in Agawam. The place to go, whether it's by yourself, you want to go with the fellas, you want to bring the kids, just a fun way to get out of the house. Winter, I find myself getting serious cabin fever. I'm just sitting around with nothing to do. It's a good place to go to just unwind a little bit, have a couple drinks, play some video games. It's a really cool spot, another locally owned business. And, I've known Mike Sarnelli, the owner, for a very, very long time. I'd say probably like 6th grade. So, again, they support us. We recommend you supporting them as well. Brewcade, you can look them up on social media and Facebook, and obviously check out their website as well. Brewcade, Brewcade. You see the logo there if you're watching on YouTube. And by our friends at Landscaping That Fits, 413-847-0338. Again, another good social media follower. If you're just dreaming of summertime, go to their Facebook and just scroll through some of the lawns that they mow and some of the beautiful landscape designs that they do in July and June and August. If you're sitting there and 8 inches of snow on Saturday. But seriously, all of your landscaping needs in any way, shape, or form. We're practically at this point, not quite, but almost to the midway point of February. March, April is going to be here before you know it. So you need spring cleanup. You still need fall cleanup, aeration, mowing, fertilizing, which is what I'm going to use them for, mosquito and tick control. I know there's a couple big companies around here that do that. And quite frankly, Rob looked at my invoice from them and he said, dude, I wouldn't charge you nearly this much to do this. So if you got one of them big companies, call Rob and see what he'd do it for. I guarantee you, I don't guarantee it, but chances are he's going to do it for a lot less than what some of those other companies that shall not be named might do it. So it's worth a shot. Might as well reach out and ask them. 413-847-0338. Again, tell them the guys from SRG sent you. I think I hit them all. We do have rooms for more sponsors if more people are interested. We don't necessarily need them. We're not exactly a for-profit here, but if you want to get the word out about your business, we are certainly happy to do that for you as well. All-Star Weekend, I have to be quite honest with you. What was that? Monday night? It was a Monday night, right? I look up
Sunday and Monday.
Monday night, I look up on my on my cable box and it says 9:00 start. 9:00 start. And you know how it is. That's when they start the pregame and then the introductions, and that thing didn't start till 9:25. So I didn't watch much of it at all. I did watch the intros just to see Devo. It was pretty cool having him win the accuracy contest and the way he just flew in that, I don't know, like the relay race thing.
The relay,
he was awesome. He had a really, really great weekend. But I think my biggest takeaway is you get to the finals, you get the Atlantic Division and the Central Division, and we've talked about it all the time, how tough this division is. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the Central, I mean, I think the last team to win it that wasn't the Hershey Bears was the Chicago Wolves, wasn't it? So, yes. And I believe they're in that division. So I thought that game was reflective of where the real hard, talented teams are. Do you remember who did Hershey beat last year? Was it Coachella Valley?
Coachella, 2 years in a row, Coachella Valley.
Okay. So, the Western Conference wasn't necessarily represented from the Central. However,
they're having a down year too, Coachella Valley this year.
Yeah. And I think that, you got to have one or two really good teams in the West or one or two really good teams in a particular division. The Central and the Atlantic, to me, are top to bottom with a couple of exceptions, just teams that every single night bring it. And I thought that's really what you saw when you're looking at Atlantic Division and you're seeing DiPietro, who's a pain, Belzile, who's a pain, right? Dvorsky, who flies around. Like, it was a good representation of, I think, where this league is at. And it was cool to see the Atlantic and the Central face off in that one. Again, I'm not crazy about this 3-on-3 tournament thing.
Yeah.
Like, better when it was 5-on-5 and 2 teams and they just got to just be ridiculous.
Play a hockey game.
Right. But I don't know. I don't know if you had any takeaways from the All-Star game in general or any representation.
My old big takeaway was congrats, Devo, the only teenager on there of all 4 rosters, the only teenager there. Devo's 19 years old. He wins the accuracy contest, like you said. He was flying in the relay, scored, I believe 2 goals in the All-Star Challenge. So great showing for Dvorsky. Great showing for the Thunderbirds. I know Boomer was there. He had a fun weekend. I'm with you. I'm getting NBA All-Star vibes, and I can't stand the NBA.
Not in a good way. Yeah.
Not in a good way. I'm not necessarily faulting the players because I get it, but you're playing 3-on-3. What makes 3-on-3 so exciting in a real game is you're seeing puck movement, you're seeing hustle, you're seeing guys get back, and you're seeing them take the puck out of the zone just to kind of reset it. I know sometimes that irks you a little bit when you're back and forth, and you're trying to lead the rush. But even one of Devo's goals is a breakaway. It was, and it's
great pass from Garand.
Yeah, it was. It's not what 3-on-3 real hockey, and yeah, I'm calling it real hockey, not what is supposed to happen in 3-on-3. So I struggle with that. It's not as exciting. I think the goaltending was fantastic for all 4 rosters. The goalies were great because, again, there was no defense. So, how hard were they even trying offensively to score? I don't know. But,
no, you could tell everybody's giving it about 75%.
Yeah,
like nobody's going 100. I mean, again, did you see that flag football Pro Bowl?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't watch a look of that because I'm not watching real football players play fake football like this.
Yeah, they look, and I'm just gonna. I don't mean this in an insulting way. I think it is what it is. They're gimmicks. They are there to celebrate the sport and the league. Again, I get it as the player. My kids, they're 9 and 10, so they want to see flag football. They want to see the Pro Bowlers play dodgeball. I don't.
Right.
I don't. I got
how would you feel? How would you feel if the AHL, and I think this would be too expensive for them, but how would you feel about the AHL doing a 4-nation style tournament like the NHL is doing instead of All-Star? Because I think that concept is kind of interesting. If you only get the Olympics every 4 years, give me, I like seeing that American crest versus the Canadian crest. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
I want to see hockey again. Like, right. I do get it. But something, if I'm going to watch any league's All-Star game, I want that product to look like I'm watching what it is meant to be. Again, it is what it is. I'm not watching these exhibitions, I'm more inclined to watch a skills competition, but, great showing from Devo. He again, the only teenager there, 19-year-old all-star playing against grown men all-stars, still trying to make it to the NHL. You got former NHLers playing in the AHL all-star game. But he held his own. He belonged there. I'm happy for him, glad for him. And, the AHL does a nice job, though. I think they recognize Devo isn't going to be in this league very long. So you want to highlight him. And so good for the league for doing that. I think they are strategic in who their all-stars are. And it's it's not a coincidence that Joel Hofer is an all-star the year before he gets brought up to the Blues, and he's not in the AHL. He's not going to be in the AHL anymore. Right. So, they're strategic in how they pick their rosters, and they do a good job with it. And Devo, it wasn't just let's get him up here. He belonged there and he did well. So good for you.
Absolutely. One other just quick thing, watch out for Hartford now. I gotta be honest. Dylan Garand had a great weekend.
Yeah.
Goaltending's been an issue for Hartford. I think that's just the kind of thing that can help a goalie. Hartford needed a little bit of time to settle down. Curious to see how they come out this weekend as a team, just because their goalie played well. And what's his name? Alex Belzile had a nice weekend too. So just something to keep your eye on. Some people can come out of that in good shape. Some people can come out of it in bad shape. I thought that Hartford might be on the up and up, but we'll see.
We will see. And look, we know how 48 hours can change the standings in the AHL. I am of the belief, I kind of feel differently than that. I kind of think Hartford is on their way to implode, and if they haven't already, I look at their big boy club, the Rangers right now, who are struggling with some inner turmoil as well. And I think that gets felt. I feel like that was kind of a little bit of the Thunderbirds a year ago. I can't help but think a player in Hartford right now feels a little bitter if they're not being called up when you see what's going on in the Rangers locker room. Well, give me a shot. I could, I'll do this better.
Right.
I could do this better. I'll be so, but again, pure speculation. I don't know. I am close to writing the Wolfpack off, but again, we know how much 48 hours can change in the AHL.
Well, speaking of teams that Matt would like to see fall off the mountain, one of the things that we were talking about today is as we get into player movement, because we are going to talk about the Thunderbirds, but kind of before we do, Matt was talking about the Ethan Frank, right?
Yeah, Ethan Frank.
So Ethan Frank got called up from Hershey. He's been up in Washington playing really well. All of a sudden, Washington's getting healthy. They're in a pinch, and they're realizing that they can't send Ethan Frank down without clearing waivers. So
and this is something new. So there's listeners, because he's played 10 games in the NHL, and based on his contract situation, he now would have to clear waivers to be sent back down to the AHL. So now if you're the Capitals, you're stuck. Do we sit this guy upstairs? Do we play him in the fourth line? Or do we keep our fingers crossed, try to put him through waivers? Now, if you're put through waivers, you can't get picked up and be sent down to that team's AHL club. Like if you get picked up on NHL waivers, you're on the NHL club. I've got to think there's a club out there who could use a speedy, skilled veteran, knows how to play the game, Ethan Frank, if you're looking to make a playoff push. So I don't think if you're Washington, you would want to put him down unless he just isn't part of your future. Then the thought process will go, well, if you send him on waivers and you lose him for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know his contract situation, how much longer he what his contract, the length of it is. But if you feel like somebody's going to pick him up, you trade him and get something for him. So, I'm keeping an eye on that just because I would love to see Hershey just be gone for a few years, He
is a 2-year contract. He is 28 years old. He's making 1.5 in the NHL and 775 in the AHL. So he's cheap. He's 28 years old, and you have him for at least another year. So
yeah,
if you're Washington, maybe you're looking for some draft picks, or you want one more big player to get over the hump. He might be some value on the trade market, but either way, it doesn't look like Hershey's going to get Ethan Frank back. So, that's interesting too for Washington. They must know that rule. Like, why didn't they? I don't know. Why didn't they
send him down after game 9?
Right, exactly. Or just play him 9 games and then put him up on the 9th floor, or play him 2 games, put him up on the 9th floor, play him 2 more games, put him up on the 9th floor. Like there's usually some sort of a system or routine to that, but so there's that situation. In terms of more on the home front, Matt Kessel gets sent back down. Mackenzie McEachern, as of today, gets called up. And I gotta be honest, compared to now to a month or 2 months ago, I don't feel like we're in a tough spot because we don't have Mackenzie McEachern anymore. I love the player, but it's so nice to see that the team is so healthy to where I think you could lose a guy like Mackenzie McEachern and still survive. I mean, if it was 2 months ago, we'd be like, oh my goodness, we got to call up Taryn Weiser again and Reese Newkirk. Now it's like, okay, well, I think we're okay. I think we're all right with this. So
my first thought, and I'm with you. I love McEachern. I think he's great on that first line. However, I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to be for the rest of the season. That's just my initial feeling. I think he'll be up and down guy. And is this just letting Monty see what he has in him? Is this a player, new coach? Let's get a look, send him back down. I think of the 2 clubs, I think you're looking at is can Springfield seriously make a playoff push? I don't think, if you're realistic with it, St. Louis is making a real Stanley Cup push. So given the two, and again, I think there's value to your young prospects playing in those big moments. I think that carries over into the big league. But hear me out. Here are our 4 lines without McEachern as I see them. Your Pekka line with Nicky and Luff. Your Devo line with Robertson and Kaskamaki. Your Dean line with Peterson and Bitten. I love that line. I think that's something I might not have thought of a little while ago, but skill, physicality, intensity, I love that line. And now your 4th line, your McGing line with Stenberg and Dickinson. No slight to McEachern, but where are you missing him?
Yeah, no, I as much as you'd love to have McEachern in the lineup, your depth is where you need it. And I mean, those can shift, but I mean, that's a better top, I would say, top 12 than, I mean, possibly Providence, definitely Lehigh Valley. I'm just talking about talent top to bottom.
Right.
I think that definitely Hartford. I mean, I think that lineup can compete and be better than a lot of teams in the division. So, I like I said, I don't think because again, I would love to have McEachern here, and I don't mean this as it's like, we don't need him anyway. But if you're going to lose a guy like that, isn't it nice to be in the shape that you're in?
Right.
And you're able
and only for a short period of time.
Right. Hopefully.
In my opinion, that's what I think it is. I think it's going to be a short period of time.
Real quick, going back to that, and you said maybe Monty wants to see what he has and take a look at things. Maybe a part of it too is, Nathan Walker's not his guy. Zach Bolduc's not his guy.
Right.
So maybe he's looking at a guy like Bolduc and going like, I don't really know why this guy's up here, but he needs to go back down and hone his game. Right. I mean, he slow played Matty Patro when he was in Boston. Right.
Right.
If McEachern can give the Blues more than a Nathan Walker can, well, now maybe he's the guy who gets sent down.
Mm-hmm.
And does he have to clear waivers? Probably. But again, the chances of Nathan Walker clearing waivers are probably better than Ethan Frank, right? So
or Bolduc, I don't think he would have to, because
I don't think Bolduc would have to at all.
He was sent back down as a paper transaction at the very beginning of the year.
Correct.
Bolduc was. So I don't, and again, we're assuming here. I haven't read anything that these guys are on the
no, we are completely making this up out of our rear end, just straight speculation. But
it's fun, and if a Bolduc is sent down, then
sweet,
nice. I look at your 4 lines in an AHL game, and if your 4th line is McGing, Stenberg, and Dickinson, if I'm an opposing coach, just the energy level, like where's your deep breath? Let's think of baseball for a second. As a Yankee fan, if you're an opposing pitcher and you're facing the Yankees lineup when it was Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, like where can you breathe in that lineup? Where can you take a deep breath and just, all right, throw? No, you have to be on every minute. And I think an opposing coach, an opposing lineups are going to look at now this roster, these lineups, and say, all right, McGing is going to bring it on the 4th line. He's going to play special teams too. You're not worried about his minutes, but he's going to bring it. Stenberg, as you pointed out at the beginning of the show, is going to play 200 feet, is going to back check, is going to forecheck. Dickinson is going to play 3rd line. Mess around and find out.
Right.
Bitten, seriously. Peterson. So it's just relentless. It's relentless. And it doesn't have, the game's not going to have to be won in the first period or the second period. But after 50 minutes of the grind of having to play all 4 lines, if Springfield's accustomed to that and they're dictating the speed and pacing of the game, I like those chances. So, it's a very balanced lineup. And then if and when McEachern or somebody else comes down, you're giving Bitten a break. You're giving Dickinson a break. You're giving Peterson a break. Robertson. Cool.
Yeah, seriously.
Yep.
No doubt. So we'll keep our eye on that this weekend for sure. I have one that I I didn't really tell Matt about, but I know we know the fan rants, but I did have a guy reach out to me on Twitter. His name is Mike Meyer, and his bio is St. Louis Blues and Blues prospects. So this guy will tweet out videos of guys that I've never even heard of that are the Blues properties that are playing in, the KHL and again, the Manitoba Moose Jaws, like whatever. and so he listens to the podcast and so he just gave us like a question off the fan rant, and it's off topic, but it is an interesting one. He says face shields, bubbles, cages, visors. What's the preference? It seems like it's only a matter of time before full face shields become mandated for the NHL. Might not be in the next year or even 2 to 3 years. I could see it happen to help protect the player's face's eyes in the future. Again, as somebody who didn't play hockey, I can only speak to it in a lacrosse format. When I played lacrosse, we obviously have the cages, and I had no problem with the cages. I took a lot of balls directly to the face, and thankfully I had that cage. I do find my only issue with the face shields or the full bubble is how many times do you see a referee or a player, the first thing they do when they get to the bench, they take the towel and they got to clean one side, they got to clean the other side because it's all foggy and it's dirty, and they got to clean and clean and clean. I can't imagine with a bubble it's any better, right? Yeah. You ask anybody with glasses, you go from a warm building and you step outside in a freezing cold, boom, everything fogs up on you. So if it does happen that way, I would like detachable cages, and I want them to be detachable so that when we get into fights, you pop that thing off, throw it on the ice, and now nobody's breaking their knuckles on shields like they do now.
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting question to throw out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm thinking of, all right, there is fighting in the game. So whatever you have to do has to be, you have to be aware of that. You have to think of that. Right now, visors, in my opinion, are pretty dangerous. We saw Rempe take a nasty cut in the NHL earlier in the season under his eye. A detachable cage, I mean, it would at least, even if you get a puck to the cage, it would detach it, but then is play stopped.
Yes.
Like the same way you would play with a goalie.
Or you got to get off the ice, just like you would if your helmet comes off, right? You got to either get it or you have to get off the ice. I don't know, but an interesting point. Mike, thank you for listening. He's out in the Midwest, so he tunes in from there. I thought about getting him on the show, but definitely check him out on Twitter, Mike Meyer, Meyer. A really good follow there, and a lot of interesting stuff if you're wondering what else is in the pipeline here for the T-Birds. So we'll look ahead to the games this weekend, I guess, Matt.
Yep.
Friday at Providence at the AMP, 7:05. Obviously, we'll be watching that one closely to see how both of these teams look coming out of the break. Michael DiPietro, again, the hottest goalie really in the league right now. And the only two goalies that I think are even close are here in Springfield with Z and Ellis after last weekend. So this could be a really good goaltending matchup. We'll see how that all shakes out.
Providence will still have Bussy going probably one of the two games.
Yeah. So they're back to back. I'm sure it'll be Zarenko and Bussy one night, and it'll be Ellis and DiPietro the other night, or whatever the combination is. I think you'll see the switching going on there. But Saturday is a big one, sold out. Springfield Isotopes night. The specialty jerseys will be doing the auction after the game, which means I will be leaving late into a snowstorm. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But it should be a good game. I think the place is going to be absolutely rowdy. It'll be cool to see the yellow. I assume it's going to be the yellow on the black. It's either going to be the yellow against the black of Providence or the white on Providence. Either way, it should be aesthetically pleasing. But this should be a fun one. And it's Agawam night. High five, Matt. Agawam night.
Yeah, Mike. Our kids are going to be playing with the flag pregame, so they'll be doing that. Look, I'm excited for this weekend. I'm excited for the sort of the home and home part of it because I like that. I think I'm going to be watching Friday night at games at 7 to see the game within the game and what will carry over. What can I expect for Saturday night at Isotopes? Crowd, fans, team needs you. We've talked about it before. We know you're into the game, but get loud when you can. This team always gets up for these specialty jersey nights, the sellout crowd. They feel the energy, so bring the energy. I do believe they're calling for some winter weather and some bad weather, so plan accordingly. Get to Tower Square parking lot early. head down to White Lion, say hi to me and my family because we will be there pregame, I think. And then we're going to walk over the same block and a half from MGM parking lot, but we're going to walk over from just the other side. But we're excited for it.
Should be a good one.
They've put themselves, the Thunderbirds have standings wise, have put themselves, there's a little bit of space between them and Hartford, but we still need points. I think you have to come away. If you can come away with 3 points here, if you can drag it out into overtime, one of these two games, continue the hot streak as the Isotopes undefeated. But big games. And
looking forward, things do get a little hairy again after this, as obviously there's no game Sunday, but then another road trip. Wednesday at Grand Rapids, Thursday at Milwaukee, Saturday at Rockford. So really a 3 and 4 and in the middle of the week. So that's going to be with obviously some travel. So it'll be interesting to see not only where they come out of this weekend with 2 against Providence, but how they look after 3 games against that Central Division that we were just talking about. 3 pretty good teams in Grand Rapids who beat us, Milwaukee, who we'll see in the Thunderdome next month, and Rockford, who I think also beat us, right?
No, we beat them.
Oh, we did. Okay.
That was an overtime game. It went to overtime.
Yeah.
In Rockford. Frank Nazar I believe is still up for Chicago there. So I don't think he was the only one who was really, I was nervous in overtime watching Frank Nazar play, but I that's where I think also it highlights the importance of these 2 games. It's not a do or die 2 games, but I think what you just have to do if you're the Thunderbirds now is avoid those long losing streaks, avoid weeks, bad week. You lose a game, then you got to come back and you got to get points. You got to win a game after a loss. You can't get on a losing streak, and you highlight next week's games. We'll talk about it on the next show, but when you're at Grand Rapids, at Milwaukee, at Rockford, there's a lot of travel. You're unfamiliar with the area, unfamiliar with the teams. There's that feeling out process, big goalies. So, these 2 against a known foe, a team you've been fairly successful with this year in Providence. Big winnable games, and I expect 3 points here. That's what I would like.
Yeah, I think 3 out of 4 points is totally doable. And just real quick, Grand Rapids first in the Central, Milwaukee's 3rd, Rockford's 5th. But Rockford's the only team with less points than you. So these will be some pretty tough games out in the Central Division. So I don't know. It'll be fun to see how it all shakes out. A quick programming note: the week of the 14th, I'll be out of town. So I think, Matt, we're going to try to, if we can, next week find some time to just do a couple interviews. I have a couple calls out. Or we're just going to slap together some interviews so you guys have some content. But we will be sort of taking that week off for immediate reactions to what's going on. But we'll get there when we get there. We'll cross that bridge. And until we do, we just, I hope everybody stays safe on Saturday. Getting home from that game. Stay safe tomorrow. Us teachers are lucky. Those of you 9 to 5ers, good luck tomorrow. Woof. That's going to absolutely suck. Yeah. So good luck. And then, like I said, this will come out on Thursday. So keep your eye out for that. Well, if you're listening to it, then you've already kept your eye out. I guess it makes sense, doesn't it?
That's it. Do you want to do any? Oh, did we do our reads?
Oh, no, I know. Let's pay the bills. We should once again thank our friends at White Lion Brewing in Tower Square in downtown Springfield. Thank our friends at Landscaping That Fits, 413-847-0338. And, of course, by our friends at Brewcade in Agawam right there on Walnut Street. Look them up, Google them. Great little locally owned business that they're running right there. So Brewcade in Agawam. Back
Absolutely.
to you, Matt.
Hey, thank you, fans. Thanks for the likes, the clicks, the shares. We've heard from a few new listeners out in the Midwest. We appreciate it. Share the show with your friends because we'd love hearing from new viewers. And as always, big weekend coming up. Let's hear it in the Thunderdome. Let's go Isotopes.